You know me, I'm Scott Wyman, the Training and Technology Coordinator here at Central Texas College. For this session, we're going to take a look at my intermediate Excel class. I'm going to break it down into smaller sections for you. We're going to start by looking at count functions. So let me switch over to my Excel workbook. All right, so here you can see I have some names. Let me zoom in for you here real quick. I have some names, I have some employee ID numbers, and I have the region in which these employees are located. And I want to do some work. I want to do some counting and find out how many people I have, how many people are in each region, you know, that kind of stuff. We're going to start by using the count function. Now there's two different ways to start or to enter your functions into your worksheet. You can do it using what I call the function wizard. It's not called a function wizard anymore. It's just formulas. It's here in the formulas ribbon, or the formulas tab on the ribbon. And each of these categories has its own functions listed beneath it. Okay? So if you know what function you're going to be using and you know what category it falls under, maybe easy, maybe not. You may spend 5 or 10 minutes up here looking around trying to find your function. Well, I've included down here in the description a link to Microsoft's website where they give you a list of all functions, all 350 some odd functions in Excel. It tells you what the function is, it tells you what category it falls under, and it gives you a brief description of what it does. I know my count function that I want to use is under statistical because I've used it so many times. So I come over here and I scroll down and there is my count function. Now I want to put this count function, let's say I want to count the number of names, okay, my number of employees. I make the whatever cell I want to put it in, for me it's J2, make that my active cell, go to more functions, hover over statistical, and then slide over and scroll down to count. That opens my count dialog box. First thing it wants to know is what value, what's your first value? And this may be a little confusing because we're not going to enter a single value here. We're going to enter a range of cells. I want it to count all of the names in column B. So simply put B:B. So you can see here it identifies that there's information in column B, but it's returning
me a big fat 0.
And that's because the count function is only used to count cells that contain numbers. All right? Count is only used to count cells that contain numbers. So if I change this B:B to a C:C, column C contains numbers. So now you can see it's identifying the numbers and it gives me a return value of 100. Now the ID, right, the ID number, that's my column heading, that's not a number, so that's not included in my count. It's identifying, it's saying, yep, I can see you, but you're not a number, so I'm not going to count you. So if I click OK, there you'll see that it has 100, but that's not names, that's ID numbers. So I can just take that formula and drag it over to column K. Now if I scroll down, let me zoom out and scroll down, you can see that there are 101 rows of information, which means 100 records, because the first row is my column heading. All right? Okay, so let's go and let's take a look at how we're going to count names, how we're going to count the number of names. Well, the second way that you can enter functions into an Excel worksheet is by manually typing it in. You start with your equal sign, and then I'll just start typing the word count. I get COUN, and then that's where I'm going to stop because I get my full list of count functions, and I'm using my arrow keys to move my highlighted area up and down. So I know what count does. It counts the number of cells in a range that contains numbers. What does count A do? Count A counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty. Okay? It's kind of the opposite of count blank. Count blank counts the number of empty cells. Count A counts the number of non-empty cells. So this sounds like one I can use to count cells that contain labels or names. So with count A highlighted, I'll press the tab key to move over into my arguments area. And again, it's asking for that value, but my value is going to be a cell range. Okay, so I want it to count all of the names in column B. So I'll put B:B, and then I'll close my argument area. And you can see over here, the highlighted area, this is going to include my column heading. I don't want the column heading included in that count. So what I can do is I can put -1. Okay, so it's going to count everything in column B and then subtract 1 for the column heading. I'll click my enter button up here on the formula bar, and there you'll see I get my return value of 100. Without that -1, I would get a value of 101 because it's now counting the column heading. So I'll put that -1 back in there. Now you could put the actual cell values. I know this goes from B1 to B101. So if I wanted to count the names and not the column heading, then I could make my first cell B2, and then I could make my last cell to count B101. Now, why don't I do this in the beginning? Well, if you use specific cell ranges like that, then every time you add a name to this list, you're going to have to go up and change that formula. Okay? We don't want to change the formula every time a name is added to our list. So what we do instead is we make that count the entire column and then simply subtract 1. And it gives you the same answer. Okay, 100 answer, 100 records, 100 ID numbers, 100 names. Easy schmeezy. Now, what if I wanted it to count and tell me how many of those employees are in each of these regions? Well, again, I'm going to start my count. So equals count. And I know it's not count because that's numbers, and, well, regions aren't numbers. Count A is going to give me everything in that column that's not blank. Count blank will give me blank cells in that column. That's not what I'm looking for. So let's look at COUNTIF. COUNTIF counts the number of cells within a range that meet a given condition. So COUNTIF column A equals west or east or whatever the case may be. Okay, so that sounds like the function we want. And since we're looking for east, we'll press tab to move over into our argument area. Now, there are, again, two ways. There's multiple ways to do a lot of stuff here in Excel. There's two ways to put in this lookup information, if you will, or the range. Okay, well, the range, and then we're going to use a different array for the criteria. So my range is going to be A:A. I want it to look in the entire column A, and I want it to look for the word east. Now, this is where the multiple ways of doing this comes in. I put a comma to separate my argument area, and now it's looking for the criteria. So if I wanted to find east, I can put this in as a literal string. Literal string simply means you're putting the actual text in that you want it to find. So you put east inside quotes. So that's what it's going to find. I'll close my argument area, click my enter button on the formula bar, and there you can see there are 17. And I can check to make sure that that's right, just to show you. Okay, I'll select everything, and then I'll tell it to sort by column A. So here's East, and it goes all the way down to number 18. 18 minus 1, because we have the column heading, is 17. Okay, so it works. But what if I want that same formula to come down and look for west, north, and south? Well, I can copy this formula down, and that'll save me some time. The problem is it's all looking for east. So what I would have to do is come in here and change this from east to west. Now, capitalization here does not matter. You can put a capital W for west. You can put a lowercase w for west. It doesn't matter. So it counts 40. Now it's giving me this little green triangle in the corner. You see that little green triangle? That's an indication telling you that something's different about the data in this cell. So if I come over here and hover over this little warning sign, you'll see it says the formula in this cell differs from formulas in this area of the spreadsheet. Well, yeah, of course it does. I told this one to look for west. The other three are looking for east. So for this one, I'm just going to tell it to ignore this error. So that's what you can do. You can just go through it and change each one of these. But then again, you run into the problem. Well, what if they change this from south to southeast and this becomes northeast? Then again, you have to go in and change the formula. So the idea behind working in Excel is to have Excel do a lot of the work for you. So instead of using the literal string up here, I highly recommend anytime you're working in Excel, if you can use a cell reference, then by all means use that cell reference. So instead of using the word east, the actual word east, I can tell Excel, hey, look in this cell because it contains the information that I want you to find. And if I click the enter button, it comes back with the same 17 answers. So that's good. And now I can use this fill handle and copy that formula down, and it's going to automatically update for each region of my data range. And it does this because we're using relative cell references. If you saw my basic Excel, you might have remembered me blurbing on about relative and absolute cell references. Well, this is the important part of this. Fill handle is really good to use, but when not used properly, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So by using this relative cell reference, and it's relative in its column and row reference. So the F is relative and the 2 is relative. So when I copy this formula down, the 2 changes to a 3. So it's looking now for west. Copy it down again, it changes the 3 to a 4. Now it's looking for north. Copy down to the last one, it changes the 4 to a 5. Now it's looking for south. Right? So this is an instance where relative cell references are your friend. Relative references are your friend. All right. So that's a good start to this intermediate Excel. Again, we looked at the count function, which is used to count numbered cells or cells containing numbers. We looked at the count A function, which is used to count non-blank cells. We looked at COUNTIF, which is used to find or to count specific criteria. So what if you had a really big list, right? And I'm just going to take one of these out of here. What if you had a really big list, and when you did your numbers or your initial counting, they come out different like this? Oh, there's only 99 names and 100 ID numbers. Well, is there an extra value at the bottom? Or is there just a blank cell somewhere? Well, you could follow this up with the count blank. All right, we'll do a count blank. And our count blank range is going to be B colon B. Now let's think about that. This is going to count all blank cells in column B. Do you know how big this worksheet is? It goes down to row 1,048,576 or somewhere around in there. So if you tell it to count blanks in column B, unless you got 1,048,000 people in your list, it's going to come up with a whole bunch of blanks. And that's not what we're looking for. So we have to know our range. Okay? We have to know our range. So I know my range because I can go from the beginning of my worksheet to the end. I can press the Control End, all right, Control End keyboard shortcut, and I can see that the last row on my worksheet is 101. So then I do a Control Home. It takes me back to the beginning. There's my response if I just do a count blank in column B. So I'm going to change that, and I'm going to count from B2 to B101. And there you can see I come up with one blank cell. So there's a blank cell in column B, not an extra number in column C. That's how you can check that. So now if I want to find that blank cell, I can go to my Home tab, and all the way over here on the right, there's a Find and Select button. Okay? So I know there's a blank cell in column B, so I'm going to select column B, because that's where I wanted to find my blank cell. Then I go to Find and Select, and I click on Go to Special. And here in the Go to Special dialog box, I'll zoom in for you. Here in the Go to Special dialog box, I click on Blanks. All right, so now it's going to highlight all of the blank cells in column B. Let me zoom out, and there you can see there is the first blank cell in column B. So that's right, I need to put a name. So I'll just put Sally in there, and we're good to go. Okay. So again, count A is for non-blank cells. Count is for cells containing numbers. Count blank is to count blank cells. COUNTIF is to count based on specific criteria. So with that, I'm going to say stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, and we'll see you back here for part 2 of Intermediate Excel.